Alright, in this last week I've put up a lot of videos about WrestleMania 32, and honestly my thought of is WWE over their head as of right now, basically booking the largest arena in America, of course Cowboy Stadium. This puts a lot of emphasis on success of WWE. If they're able to sell this out and make it look full, it's possibly going to be one of the miraculous stories of all time. The numbers that I keep pulling is that at WrestleMania 30, which was a huge success in New Orleans, 75,000 fans. WrestleMania 31, which the week of WrestleMania was looking like it was going to be a huge success. The night that it was over, people were thinking it was one of the greatest WrestleManias of all time. 76,000 fans, and now all of a sudden you're getting into this stadium, AT&T Stadium, which puts huge demands on WWE to put a good event out. When this event was first named, you had thoughts of Stone Cold Steve Austin wrestling, Daniel Bryan wrestling against maybe Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker having his retirement match, and when it comes down to it, honestly, none of this may happen. Word came out this week of possible Brock Lesnar opponents, possible John Cena opponents, possible opponents for The Undertaker, and all of those were matches that people were sort of looking at like, none of these are matches that I wanted to see. Honestly, how hard is it to put together maybe Sting versus Undertaker? Sting is a guy that got injured during his last match against Night of Champions. Maybe Vince McMahon has lost all thought of putting Sting into another match, so maybe that possible dream match that WWE fans have been looking for so long is not going to happen at all. John Cena versus Undertaker seems like a match that so many wrestling fans think would just be huge. We saw this match once in 2002 when John Cena wasn't even really John Cena, and John Cena is the guy for WWE. Undertaker really doesn't have the streak evolving around him, but Undertaker is the guy with the most mystique of everything in the back. And if you want to really put somebody out there that John Cena can beat, to put the big exclamation point on his career, which honestly, WrestleMania 28 should have been. I still believe Cena should have beat Rock at WrestleMania 28, and maybe WWE. I don't think that would have been like WWE digging themselves out of the hole that they've put themselves in as of late. But I don't know. With WrestleMania 32, you have to look at the top. You have to look at the main event. You have to see what's going to be bringing people in. Everybody knows that with Brock versus Undertaker, the word on the street is that the match is going to take place at Hell in the Cell for the one reason is that Vince McMahon has changed the WrestleMania 32 card. No one really knows what the WrestleMania 32 card is going to be. We only know possibilities about what is going to happen. But if you look at the main event of WrestleMania 31, which was supposed to be Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, with Roman Reigns becoming the guy in WWE, it didn't really get to happen. I think you could really see that between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania 31, a lot of people were losing steam because they really didn't believe in Roman Reigns. They did everything they could to try to help Roman. They had Roman Reigns wrestle one of his greatest matches of his career against Daniel Bryan against the Fastlane pay-per-view. But then once news broke that Brock Lesnar wasn't going to be leaving WWE, he was going to be re-signing, and he wouldn't be just vanished after the Monday Night Raw appearance and headed back to UFC in order to fight the last fights of his career for Dana White in the Octagon. Everyone thought it was wide open. Maybe Brock Lesnar would beat Roman, and then maybe they would solve their differences somewhere down the road, with a lot of people thinking that Roman Reigns gained a lot of respect by being able to lose his first main event and not what's the word I'm looking for? Not getting handed everything to him on a silver spoon. Instead, the wild card was Seth Rollins running in with his Money in the Bank briefcase. The first guy, when did this come into play? Los Angeles was WrestleMania 20. I'm horrible at this. I believe it was WrestleMania 21. They came up with the Money in the Bank briefcase situation with guys winning the Money in the Bank, and then they would hold it all the way until WrestleMania. The Money in the Bank briefcase got so over to the point where in 2010 it was recreated as its own pay-per-view and it was taken off of the WrestleMania show. Maybe this way guys wouldn't have to hold it as long, a whole year to get to WrestleMania. They would be able to hold it from, the summer and get to WrestleMania and become it. But, you know, we had Dolph Ziggler cash in WrestleMania weekend at Monday Night Raw, but this was the first guy to ever just take the opportunity and main event WrestleMania because of the Money in the Bank briefcase. And when he did it, making it a three-way, I remember the question marks in my head of thinking, like, are they just wasting it, trying to get this off of Rollins, because maybe they don't have plans with it? But then, you know, he became champion, and then all of a sudden it's Roman Reigns got screwed out of his match. They're obviously probably going to use this as the next big match at SummerSlam, but instead they brought Brock back, and they did Brock versus Rollins at Battleground. And then SummerSlam came, and they did Lesnar versus Taker. They did, what was SummerSlam for Roman Reigns? He wrestled in that tag match with Ambrose, and Rollins wrestled against John Cena. So this, you know, hasn't really been solved. Basically, it's just sort of been put in the back burner. You know, last year, one of the biggest rivalries for Brock Lesnar was Seth Rollins, who kept on trying to prove that he was a big money maker. Roman Reigns hasn't really, you know, been a guy who's been bitching a lot. He just keeps fighting the fight that keeps putting that gets put in front of him, no matter if it's, you know, Bray Wyatt and the feud that will never end, or I guess now he's got something on the back burner with Chris Jericho that might be forever before we actually get to see it. Part of me maybe thinks that something might happen at the Madison Square Garden show between Ambrose and Reigns, since they're not on it, and Jericho has a shot against Kevin Owens. But then that sort of makes the Shield look like assholes if they interfere in that match, and it's almost like they're turning on Jericho, even though Jericho, I guess you can say, pouted and you know, turned on them at the show. So I don't know. On Jericho's podcast, he said that was going to mean something someday in the future, but now there's word out today that Jericho's going to be, you know, going off and doing his thing with Fozzy, and we might not be seeing him for a while. But the word on the street, you know, from Dave Meltzer, it's no real official word. It's just Meltzer just speculating on what he thinks it's going to be. He thinks that they might do the rematch of WrestleMania 31 at 32 of Reigns, Rollins, and Brock Lesnar as the at the top of the card in the main event. How you get this through, I don't know. I don't really want to see a screwjob finish of Lex Luger and Bret Hart at leading to WrestleMania 10. I don't want to see two guys falling over the ropes at the same time. But definitely, when I went to the Royal Rumble in Phoenix, even though Brock wasn't a part of the show, which was leading up to WrestleMania 29, where he would take on Triple H, I knew that John Cena was going to be winning that, and I thought they would do John Cena versus The Rock at WrestleMania 29. But in the back of my mind is sort of a mystery in my pocket. I was really hoping that Brock Lesnar was going to appear at the Royal Rumble that year, and that he was going to win the Rumble, and then that would make Brock versus Rock at WrestleMania 29, which a lot of people thought was still going to happen. So it's not out of this world with Brock Lesnar making a lot of appearances. Since WrestleMania 31, when his deal has expired, he's wrestled at the Beast in the East. He wrestled at Battleground, SummerSlam. He's going to be wrestling at the Madison Square Garden show. He's going to be wrestling at Hell in a Cell. That's already 5 wrestling appearances on the year. There was a small rumor that Brock did Beast in the East, basically for the lodging and the hotel flight, because he wanted to go visit a friend that lived in Japan. I heard that story from Dave Meltzer, but I've heard there's money. They're already over on their dates for Brock Lesnar, so they had to pay Brock Lesnar cash for Hell in a Cell, knowing that it was going to probably still make them money to pay over the contract deal. But I don't know. It seems like Brock's wrestling a whole lot more than he once was. And honestly, from looking at Brock's deal that he had from WrestleMania 28 to 31, I thought that was sort of a letdown. When Brock came back, it was a big deal. But when Brock left, you can see wrestling drop a peg. And I would rather have wrestling almost on a level playing ground where they're able to use these guys all the time, but especially when Brock was champion in between SummerSlam and when did he lose it? I guess he lost it at WrestleMania 31 with him doing a long stretch. I really thought that made fall and winter for WWE really down, but we'll see what happens. My biggest question mark for this is how do they solve the Royal Rumble? Reigns win the Rumble and become a 2 times Rumble winner right off the bat. That would make him like the greatest Royal Rumble guy of all time, with him having his second place finish against Batista, then winning the next year, and then winning the year after that. That's a pretty good record. It puts him right up there with Triple H. No, not Triple H. Triple H has only won one. But I think he was the last guy eliminated with the Rey Mysterio one. But you got to think about Hulk Hogan. You got to think about Shawn Michaels. And Stone Cold Steve Austin, if Reigns is able to have 3 years in a row like that. But Brock's a guy that honestly could just walk in and just say, I'm having this match, and you butted into my match, I'm going to butt into yours. And maybe Rollins would let him in there, thinking that he was going to need help against Roman Reigns. So we'll see. WrestleMania 32. It's less than 200 days away. Save your money.